another crazy week, and it's going to get worse, folks. Let me just touch on this McConnell thing, because sometimes stories like this get lost, and certainly I'm not going to go into a long diatribe about Jimmy Dore or other people who are just not bright enough to understand the implications of having a Republican executive in office in a Republican-controlled Senate. There's not going to be any legislation that gets passed over the next 2 years, 18 months, 2 years, that is going to be particularly horrific. There may be some corporatist ones that get passed that do so with a little fanfare that we may not like, but there's not going to be any huge tax cuts for the wealthy again. There's not going to be a rollback of the ACA, although it will happen administratively in some sectors. There's not going to be cuts to Medicare. There's not going to be cuts to Social Security. There's not going to be Social Security privatization. However, what has happened in the Senate and will continue to happen in the Senate, and at a pace that is even greater than it's been, will be the wholesale monopolization of the far right of our judiciary for decades to come. Decades to come. If we are extremely lucky, the worst that will happen about the Supreme Court from now until 2020 will be that a 70-some-odd-year-old conservative is replaced by a 45-year-old conservative. So that seat will not come up for grabs for another 30 years. And if you look at the conservatives on the court, that majority of 5 will be there until I am probably too old to speak into this microphone and be legible and understood. Huge missed opportunity, obviously, with the Garland thing. I mean, it wasn't, putting aside that Garland was not the pick that I would have chosen. But Kennedy and maybe I would imagine Thomas is going to announce his resignation pretty soon. That would be my guess. Yeah. They're going to want to get him out of the way. Although McConnell may not, it certainly will not slow things down, because it's 9 months till an election, whatever it is. But Roberts is probably going to be the next out, unless something tragic happens and one of the 4 on the left side of the court, I guess, the liberal side of the court, has to resign. And even these 4 are not, they are to the right of nearly everyone who sat on that court, supposedly in the left seats 30 years ago. But nevertheless, the other aspect of the judiciary is not just the Supreme Court. It is the Federal Court of Appeals in various districts, circuits around the country. And Trump has filled these spots at a pace that is completely unprecedented, at least in the last 4 or 5 presidents, so 30, 40 years, at least. And they are as radical as maybe we've seen in the modern era. They are much more reminiscent of justices that we would have seen in the 1890s, let's say, or the early 1900s, who viewed such things as Social Security as unconstitutional. I mean, these people are extremely radical. They come in slightly different flavors. Some are convinced that we are now living in a full-on socialistic, communistic state. Others think that we're living in too profane of a world, and they're theocrats. But they're all extremely radical on the conservative end. And what Mitch McConnell has done is he got rid of the filibuster when it came to the Supreme Court justices. Completely predictable, although some people thought it was equivalent to the moon falling in Lake Michigan. Completely predictable. And Mitch McConnell also got rid of blue slips, which was a rule that basically said a senator from any given state could basically refuse to give their sign-off for a judicial nominee in that circuit that includes their state and prevent a lot of judges from sitting on that court. The Republicans used this throughout the Obama administration, repeatedly, kept a lot of judges off the court. McConnell no longer recognizes that practice. The latest reporting is that McConnell will now invoke a new nuclear option by reducing the amount of time for debate over district-level judicial nominees from 30 hours to 2. So one of the ways that Democrats have tried to slow McConnell's role here, and particularly since Chuck Schumer was basically told, I think, by his caucus, you got to stop making these deals that allow all of them to walk through, that they would require 30 hours of debate. And, 30 hours of debate, it's not from this morning at 10 a.m. till tomorrow at 4 p.m. It is 30 hours in which the Senate is in session. And on any given week, there may only be 30 hours of session time period. Probably, I don't know, maybe even less. And so this slows the pace in which judges can be confirmed. However, if you change the rules, which McConnell can do with a simple majority vote, that will basically just make it the path to confirming all these much easier. So this is going to be, highly problematic for my kids. That's how long the impact of this is going to be.
As far as I'm concerned, court packing should be a question asked of every single presidential candidate right now.
The problem is, and Eric Holder actually came out in favor of that today. I think ultimately court packing will bring about hopefully some reform with the Supreme Court on 18 years. But it's unlikely, and it's possible the Senate could add, to the circuit courts around the country. Certainly the Republicans were trying to reverse that. During the Obama administration, they tried to eliminate 3 positions on the D.C. Circuit Court so that Republicans could maintain their parity with the number of Democrats on there because there was 3 or 4 vacancies. It's conceivable that but it's not just for presidents, right? This would be for Democratic senators. Will you vote to expand the number of judges on these circuit courts? But it becomes you're opening a can of worms. The best thing to do is to win elections consistently over time, and make sure that you have the ability to vote for these to confirm these judicial nominees. And frankly, the left does a very bad job because they don't seem to understand the importance of the judiciary as exemplified by people who poo-poo it. There is nothing akin to the Federalist Society in terms of basically training and reproducing these judicial candidates and providing on day one the president with a list. Here's 50 people who should be getting the first 50 circuit court or district court appointees, and here's a list of people on the Supreme Court. It is just simply that the left, broadly speaking, doesn't take this stuff terribly seriously. I think that's going to change over the next 15, 20 years when they start to realize, nothing we pass.
Oh, it's changing now, I think, already.
I think there are plenty of people on the left who take it seriously. I think there are structural barriers to it, and maybe some people didn't take it as seriously as they should have, but it's more complex than that.
But it takes, people can say I take it seriously, but it takes literally, decades to build an infrastructure. And when Cenk Uygur was a young lawyer, 25 years ago, I think he was a member of the Federalist Society, right? Like there is no equivalent on the left. And I'm not just talking about, voters or the commentariat. Also, like institutionally, there needs to be more appreciation on the left of the judiciary. That will happen. It's going to take 10 years from now when we have, President
Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar trying to,
She is the new stand-in. I don't care, by the way, if whatever the amendment is that bars her, but she's my new ideal stand-in.
Right.
It's no longer AOC.
Right.
It's President Ilhan Omar.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll change the rules.
Whoever it is as president there, when they start to pass the Sharia laws and the
so I've been working for.
The court says you can't pass that this is unconstitutional. That's when I think you're going to see a lot more activity.
We pack the court so we can implement Sharia.
Right.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, well,
awesome.
Court packing and term limits are two shorter term solutions to the damage that's been done to the judiciary.
I'm importing
And we
the
need to
Grand
keep
Mufti
all the
from
options on
Egypt.
the table.